Another month has passed us by, so it's time to stop and rank all 11 new July movies that I saw, from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the July new movies that you saw. Also, if I missed a movie that you think I'd like, let me know about it down below, and let's get started. In last place, My Spy: The Eternal City. This is the sequel to the film My Spy from 4 years ago, where Dave Bautista plays this spy protecting this girl, and he becomes like a father figure to her. And, you know, it was a fine family film, the sort of thing that you watched, it puts a little grin on your face and then you kind of completely forget about it. It was nice to have a movie during COVID, but other than that, it didn't leave much of a mark. And then it seemed like out of the blue, they were doing a sequel to the movie, and my son was out of town last week, so we sat down and watched it with the girls, and it just was a movie that never seemed to justify its existence. And the more I watched, the more I was confused as to what movie they thought they were making. Like, after the introduction to the film, I was thinking, like, this is like a Nickelodeon movie. This is so goofy and juvenile. Later in the movie, they drop an F-bomb. There's all sorts of like crass joking about body parts that was like, watching this with my 5-year-old. What movie is this? What just happened? I thought these were family movies. And there's like quite literally an F-bomb. I thought my wife had misheard it and thought the girls had misheard it. So I rewound it. I was like, oh no, they did. In this movie that can be very kiddie, very childish, it's also pushing the boundaries of PG-13 to the limit. Kind of beyond that, the charm of the first movie was Dave Bautista with this 9-year-old girl. And that kind of set the genre, the scope, size of the story, what sort of jokes you would tell. And in this movie, because it's coming out 4 years later, but that movie had been delayed because of COVID type stuff, the girl is now in high school. She's no longer elementary school age girl. She's now in high school, which gives the movie a very different vibe, a very different dynamic between the two characters. And it just kind of lost all of its charm. Add to that, the actual plot itself just feels like it's borrowing from all these kind of other movies. It immediately kind of felt like Spider-Man Far From Home, because it's about a European trip with spy stuff kind of going on, but other movies as well. So it didn't do anything to make me go, I understand why they decided to make this sequel when they decided to make this sequel. It just felt totally unnecessary and not particularly good. Number 10, Despicable Me 4. After sharing my thoughts on this film in my out of the theater reaction, my review, and on Letterboxd, I discovered that the Despicable Me franchise has a very passionate and defensive fan base. As for me, I just felt like this was a very lazy sequel that kind of completely forgot what the franchise is all about, and it's just turned into a bunch of very quick, cheap gags for the TikTok generation.
Why can't you be more like your sister? She lies all the time.
No, I don't.
See?
The movie sets up its main plotline in the first 10 minutes, and then the whole middle of the film is just subplot on top of subplot on top of subplot. Sometimes it's just like little scenes that go nowhere, little bits that go nowhere that they thought were funny. Maybe they're a little funny, but they're not important in any way to a plot, character arc, anything like that. They're just little bits they throw in there, and then we loop back into the main plot in the last 10 minutes of the film. And it's watchable, it's short enough, it's not tedious, but it just doesn't do anything interesting or new. And the reason I say all of this is because the first Despicable Me had all the gags, memorable characters, and interesting concept, all while also still having a heart. This one, it's just left with the gags. Gags with characters I already like, but no plot, no heart, no cohesion, so a disappointment. Number 9, Young Lion of the West, and this is an independent film that was written by and stars my friend Joey Sasso. He's someone that competed on actually a number of Netflix reality TV shows, and through Cody Leach The three of us ended up doing some panels at MegaCon this last year, and I became friends with him through that entire experience. And he's had a movie he's been trying to make for years and years and years, and essentially had to independently finance the movie, made it like very low budget, and finally the movie came out this month. And it's kind of in the vein of the early Scorsese films, in a sense, of kind of, exploring these complex, broken people in a very specific, shady world that they live in. It's a different subculture than what Scorsese explored, but it's the one that Joey's more familiar with. And kind of showing this person's rise and the way that their faults and their inability to overcome certain issues from their past, as well as character faults. They can't overcome them. They can't make the right choice. And so you start seeing the world around them start to crumble. And so it kind of very much falls into that lane. And on a lot of structural type of levels, it does that really well. It is a very low budget, self-financed indie film. True indie film. Sometimes when we say indie film, we mean movie made for $2 million. Like, they wish they had $100,000 when they were making this film. And so, there are limitations with that, of the actors they're able to get, the certain ways that they're trying to do some of the big establishing shots, what they need to do, some of the music cues. You can see the places where the budget really held them back. Likewise, you can tell that they're, not shooting on big, gigantic, fancy cameras, things like that. But all things considered, it does a really good job of telling the story that it's trying to tell, about a character that's not the easiest to root for or like, because you can see so many of his faults and the ways that he keeps giving into his worst tendencies. And so it's very cool that I know someone that was able to have a passion to tell a story and actually got it done, got it made, got it released. That's the thing that I've always wanted to do, and he's actually done it. Next up, Crumb Catcher. This is a movie that I saw at Fantastic Fest last year. I haven't rewatched it since last September, so I can't get into some of the specificity with the film. But it's a movie that's kind of this very offbeat thriller about a newly married couple that go off on their honeymoon, and then kind of this crazy guy follows them. And what seems like an awkward guy, you start to realize is an unstable guy, that you start to realize is something much more nefarious, evil, and twisted. And so it starts as kind of like a romance, then it's a dark comedy, and then it's like this terrifying thriller. Like, it's a bunch of different things. It doesn't fit neatly into one box. The guy trying to sell the Crumb Catcher, that doesn't really paint the right picture what the movie is, but essentially a guy tracks them down to try and sell them a crumb catcher while they're on their honeymoon. That's the offbeat side of this film, but it's so much more insane, weirder, but not like weird in like trippy sense, but weird in like bizarre character type stuff, and just building this tension and lack of discomfort as you're watching the movie. It's for a very niche type of audience that likes thrillers, but wants something that just has a totally different vibe to it. But the guy selling the Crumb Catcher is really fun and is like charismatic, awkward, combined with eventually terrifying, and just how persistent he is with everything happening. So if all that sounds interesting to you, see if you're able to track down a way to see this one. Number 7, MaXXXine, the third film in the X trilogy. A movie I was pretty excited to check out because the trilogy, or the first two films in the trilogy, are just such an odd series of films where each one is paying homage to a different era of films, but also is thematically tied together. And then this one was going into the 80s and was doing kind of a stalker vibe, maybe a little bit of Terminator vibe in certain aspects to it. And it just seemed like it had a great vibe to it. And that really is what's great about the film, is the aesthetic, the vibe, the setting. A number of the performances here are really good. On a plot level, even as a thriller, I don't think it did a great job of building the tension. I didn't feel as much tension as I felt I should have. And then as you get the final reveal, you're like, yeah, I kind of knew that. We're doing a whodunit, and I knew whodunit pretty much in the opening scene of the movie. I knew where this was headed. And so it kind of ends on a little bit of a whimper, but it does have a lot of really cool things about it. Number 6, Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. And for me, this was a solid legacy sequel where we haven't gotten one of these in 30 years. We haven't really gotten one that I really loved in about 40 years. For me, this is the second best movie in the franchise. It delivered a good Axel Foley experience here.
God, I missed you, Axel.
Where Eddie Murphy is on his game. He's having fun. We're on another investigation. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a great addition to the team. He fits right in. I think the movie's biggest misstep was the daughter, that they wrote her to be just too one-dimensional in that she's just mad at her dad. She's mad at her dad because she's mad at her dad. And whether in the writing, the direction, or the performance, she doesn't have any of the Foley charm. Like, I'm glad they didn't cast like a comedian to step in to try and outdo Eddie Murphy, but they could have brought someone in that had a little bit more zest to them, a little bit more of that charisma. Other than that, it plays it safe, but I think there's nothing wrong with playing it safe if you're getting back to what the franchise is all about, so I had a good time with it. Number 5, Oddity. This is a movie I saw at the Overlook Film Festival several months back, and a movie that also played at South by Southwest, which I was at, but I wasn't able to see this film, and it won an audience award at South by Southwest. This was my favorite non-studio film that played at the Overlook Film Festival, and it's another independent, low-budget horror film. This one essentially is kind of a spin on a bit of a haunted house type of story, where you think certain characters are the nefarious ones or the evil ones, or they're part of what's going on here, and it kind of turns all of that on its head. The things that you think are normally evil and bad turn out to not be the evil and bad aspects to it. So it's offbeat, very small scale, a mystery of like what exactly happened, who did it, how did it play out, what was the motivations, what piece tied it all together. And so just something different in a genre that can be oversaturated at times. In 4th, Kill. This is a movie that I saw last year at Fantastic Fest. It's an Indian action film, and people were going pretty crazy for this one at Fantastic Fest because it's so ultra violent. And a lot of times when people think of Indian cinema, they think of kind of the frequently breaking into songs, or kind of merging a bunch of different genres together. This movie, I think, is intentionally trying to be much more of in the vein of a Hollywood action film and really pushing the boundaries with the violence. It's more traditional in its structure. It doesn't have the dance mobs, and it has a few moments of melodrama, but mostly focuses in on being this intense action film with a single tone, which is actually quite different for an Indian film. And it's sort of Die Hard on a train. That sort of idea of trains held hostage, lone commando trying to save the day. And the first half of it, you'll be watching it and you'll be thinking like, this is cool, but I don't know, a bunch of people were praising this movie. I feel like I'm missing it. And then something happens, the title card drops, and you go, oh, it's about to go down. And then it does for the rest of the movie. So it's a little bit of a slow burn in the first half, feels a little bit familiar. And then title card drops halfway through the movie, and it just goes bananas from there. Ultra violence, visceral, just bone snapping, action, revenge. Pretty cool stuff. Like, there's a very big shift in the dynamics of the film halfway through it after the title card drops. So if you're looking for an action movie with some actual punch to it, a bit of a different vibe, check out Kill. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the July new movies that you saw, as well as give me any recommendations if I missed something that you think that I would like. Also, a bunch of these movies I've posted full reviews for, or expanded thoughts, or with like some of the ones from the film festivals. I talked about them closer to when I watched them, so I can be more specific rather than trying to remember what I saw 9 months ago. So down below, I'll pin a comment with links to the full reviews if you want my full thoughts, or thoughts closer to when I saw some of these festival films. In third, Deadpool and Wolverine. And as I said in my review, this might not be the best movie of the year, but it will be one of the most entertaining films of the year. It's very much like Spider-Man No Way Home in that it's an event for the fans. It does something special for the fans. It's fan service, the movie, but in a good sense. It knows what fans want, and it finds a way to deliver something cool. If you've been a fan of these movies for decades past, this delivers a great experience, in particular in a packed theater. As always, the Deadpool movies are very entertaining. They're very funny. All of that is true with this one. Throw Hugh Jackman into the mix, and he's able to bring a sincerity that Ryan Reynolds, I don't think, is able to, because he's just winking at the camera and making a joke about so much. Hugh Jackman is able to bring that emotional oomph. And so he anchors the film so it's still able to have a heart in everything kind of going on in it. The cameos, I love where they went with so much of that. On a plot level, it doesn't necessarily hold up particularly well. The plot exists to provide an excuse to have these two characters interact, provide the cameos, and give this movie like thematic cohesion, as well as an emotional arc to it. It works on those levels, but it's the kind of movie, if you stop and think about it, it doesn't make any sense, like at all. Like, it's just an excuse to be able to tackle all this multiverse fun. Which, if that's the compromise to be able to make a movie that's entertaining, fair be it. But at the same time, like, you can't pretend like the movie has like this great compelling plot that makes sense. It does not. So, a very entertaining film, but a movie that had to cut some corners to be able to provide the experience. Our runner-up, Longlegs. Now, this is a movie I went into it knowing very little about it. I hadn't seen most of the marketing. I just knew that it had really good buzz. I went in hoping to get some sort of creepy investigation movie, and that's what I got. To me, it felt like a throwback serial killer film, like in the vein of Silence of the Lambs, Seven, those types of movies, and that's what it delivered, while having its very own vibe and aesthetic. The way that everything is shot, the framing of the characters, where people tend to be very centered. It very intentionally leaves open space so you can see what's going on behind them. And it creates this constant sense of unease from beginning to end. So it's a movie that's able to deliver something that feels familiar in many ways, but also has its own spin on the genre. It's an interesting one because the marketing so oversold the movie to a bunch of people that they left really disappointed. And I don't know if they were necessarily evaluating the film based on its own merits or based off of what they thought the movie was going to deliver. So it's just kind of fascinating to see how many people watched this movie, thought it was great atmosphere, and how many people were just really disappointed by it. Obviously, I really enjoyed it, and I was lucky enough to be able to interview the director the day after I saw it, which was a very cool experience.
I kind of felt like it'd be a fun trick in a way to just pretend like it was going to be Silence of the Lambs, like just like fake it for a minute and to kind of be like, oh, it's Silence of the Lambs, audience. Like you feel comfortable with that. You know what that's like. You know what to expect from that. And to kind of do that for a while and then take a really sharp left turn. So once I kind of had that plan in mind, it began to take shape. I mean, it was meant almost to be sort of almost a pop art look at those things, to sort of reference them directly, to actually take scenes and story points directly out of those movies. And it's meant to be a move that they did. I'm not trying to pretend like I came up with that idea. I'm actually trying to pretend like I didn't come up with that idea, that I'm referencing another serial killer movie.
And it's a movie that's also a big win for independent film. This is now, it had the biggest opening ever for Neon Films, its distributor. It was made for like $10 million. And now it's become the highest grossing films from Neon Films. It made about $60 million just here in the United States. So it's a huge, gigantic win for independent film. If you want original stories, you want movies like this to succeed. I was actually lucky enough to be in the room with the director as he was seeing the pre-sales coming in. And he was like saying right before we started filming and right after, like he was saying, we're selling more tickets than The Omen from a few months back. Like, I can't believe how well this is doing. And I got to see that, and it's gone on to be that successful. So that was really cool. But coming in at number 1, Twisters. This is just a good old-fashioned fun blockbuster where the beginning of the movie establishes a character arc, emotional stakes, and the very real stakes. And then we just go off and have some fun with characters that you care about, wild, crazy scenarios, little bit of romance thrown in there. There's something for everyone. It's entertaining. It moves quickly. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't have like an overly complex plot. It's not trying to reinvent the world. It knows its job. And it delivers on exactly what its audience wants from this type of film. I took my wife to go see it at the press screening, and she said she absolutely loved it. She went to go rewatch it with our neighbor who had also already gone to go see it. It's the type of movie that just, I don't know, suburban people like myself, we just want to go off, have some escapist fun, and this is the sort of thing we mean when we say that. So for me, it comes in at number 1. Remember, you can check out my more in-depth thoughts on a bunch of these movies at that pinned comment down below. There's also a video right there you can check out. I don't know what YouTube's recommending to you. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV.